The cafeteria of Galactic Academy Station 7 smelled like burnt protein cubes and regret. I stood there, tray in my 4 appendages, watching the human child sit alone at the corner table for the 3rd rotation in a row. Her name was Maya Winters, and she was the first human student our institution had ever accepted. Small thing, fragile looking. Her brown hair fell in 2 braids down her shoulders, and her skin was this pale peachy color that seemed like it would bruise if you looked at it too hard. Still eating by herself, I see. Vrex clicked beside me, his mandibles twitching with amusement. He was a Crithian, all chitinous plates and superiority complex. Humans, so weak they cannot even make friends. I am Tolvin, a Maruvian observer assigned to document interspecies integration at the Academy. My species prides itself on neutrality, on watching without judgment. But even I had to admit, the human looked pathetic sitting there, picking at her food with those tiny 5-fingered hands. Did you hear what happened in gravitational physics yesterday? Sella, a Vortan with crystalline skin that refracted light in annoying ways, slithered up to our group. The human could not even calculate basic orbital mechanics without using her primitive data pad. Professor Kelmick had to explain the equations 3 times. Laughter rippled through our cluster. 17 different species, all united in finding the human inadequate. My clutchmate says humans smell like salt water and fear, added Prex, his gelatinous form wobbling with mirth. I documented this in my neural recorder. Day 47. Subject continues to experience social isolation, peer mockery increasing in frequency and intensity. The cafeteria was massive, a dome structure with artificial sky projections that cycled through various planetary atmospheres. Today it showed the purple storms of Hector Prime. Under that false sky, Maya Winters looked even smaller, even more out of place. She wore the standard Academy uniform, gray and formless, designed to accommodate thousands of body types. On her, it hung loose. Humans, I had learned, were neither the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the smartest species in the known galaxy. They had no natural armor, no venom, no telepathic abilities. They were middling in every measurable way, except for one thing. They were stubborn. Maya finished her meal, gathered her materials, and walked past our group with her head held high. Not high in arrogance, but high in defiance, as if she refused to let us see her break. Pathetic, Vrex muttered. The afternoon brought advanced combat theory, a class that combined physical assessment with tactical analysis. Every species had their advantages. Crithians had their natural exoskeletons. Vortans could phase through solid matter for brief moments. Hectarians could manipulate localized gravity fields. Humans had endurance, apparently. The ability to keep going long after more sensible creatures would have quit. Professor Morix, a 6-legged Talvesian with compound eyes that could see in 16 different spectrums, surveyed the class. Today, we will discuss predatory response patterns. Each species evolved with specific threat responses. Who can tell me about the Crithian defensive stance? Vrex immediately stood, eager as always. We possess the Granite Protocol, Professor. When threatened, our exoskeleton hardens to 3 times its normal density, allowing us to withstand tremendous force while delivering devastating counterstrikes. Excellent. And the Vortan response? Sella's crystalline form shimmered. Phase displacement, Professor. We can shift our molecular structure to become temporarily intangible, allowing threats to pass through us harmlessly. Very good. Now let us discuss Earth predators. Professor Morix turned one of his many eyes toward Maya, who sat in the back row, as always. Miss Winters, can you tell us about the apex predators of your world? The class went silent. This was going to be entertaining. Maya stood slowly. Her voice was quiet, but steady. Earth has many apex predators, Professor. It depends on the environment. In the oceans, we have great white sharks and orcas. On land, various big cats, bears, wolves. In the air, eagles and other raptors. Fascinating. And humans. Where do humans fall in this hierarchy? A trap question. Everyone knew humans were not apex predators. They were prey animals that got lucky with tool use. Humans are persistence hunters, Professor. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we can track prey for days, sometimes weeks, until they collapse from exhaustion. Our ancestors would literally run animals to death. Nervous laughter rippled through the classroom. Run things to death? How barbaric. How inefficient. And yet, Professor Morix continued, and I detected something in his tone I could not quite identify. Humans chose to bond with one of Earth's most notoriously fierce predators. They domesticated it, made it family. Tell me, what do you know of the Mellivora capensis? Maya's expression changed. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. The honey badger, Professor. Indeed. Can you enlighten your classmates about this creature? Well, Maya began, and her voice grew stronger. Honey badgers are small, about 25 pounds on average, but they're known for taking on animals 50 times their size, lions, hyenas, even venomous snakes. They have incredibly thick skin that's loose on their bodies, so when something bites them, they can turn around inside their own skin and attack back. They're immune to most venom. And they never, ever give up. There's footage of honey badgers fighting off entire prides of lions just to get to a meal. They're basically small, furry missiles of pure rage and determination. Silence in the classroom. Then more laughter. And humans befriended these creatures? Vrex asked, incredulous. No, Maya said quietly. We respected them. We learned from them. Because sometimes being small doesn't matter if you're tough enough. The class erupted in genuine laughter now. The idea that a 25-pound Earth creature could teach anyone anything about survival was absurd. Settle down, Professor Morix said, but I noticed he did not laugh. We will continue this discussion next rotation. Dismissed. I followed Maya as she left the classroom, keeping appropriate documentation distance. She walked through the corridors with that same upright posture, past groups of students who whispered and pointed, past Vrex and his cohort, who made exaggerated stumbling motions, mocking her small bipedal form. She did not cry. She did not lash out. She simply continued forward. Day 47. Addendum. Subject demonstrates remarkable emotional control despite sustained harassment. That evening, I was reviewing my notes in the observatory level when the station-wide alert system activated. Not an emergency, just an announcement. Attention all students and faculty. We have received special clearance for an Earth-native companion animal to join us aboard the station. This is part of the cultural exchange program. The creature has been cleared by xenobiology and poses no threat to station integrity. It will arrive via transport shuttle in the morning cycle. My sensory stalks perked up. A companion animal? For Maya, presumably. This was unusual. Academy regulations typically prohibited non-sentient creatures aboard the station, except for scientific study. The next morning, the entire student body gathered in the main docking bay, curiosity overriding common sense. Even Vrex was there, eager to mock whatever soft, fluffy earth pet the human had requested. The shuttle doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Maya stood at the entrance, and beside her, on a reinforced leash attached to what looked like an incredibly sturdy harness, was a creature. It was low to the ground, with short legs and a long body, black and white fur, with a distinctive marking pattern, small, rounded ears, a blunt snout, and eyes. By the stars, those eyes. They held an expression I had seen before, in the gaze of Hectarian warhounds and Talvesian battle drakes. Pure, undiluted challenge. Everyone, Maya said, her voice carrying across the bay. This is Rascal. The creature made a sound, something between a growl and a hiss, and I felt my thermal regulation organs spike. That sound spoke of violence, of absolutely zero tolerance for nonsense. That? Vrex laughed, stepping forward. That is your companion? It looks like it weighs less than a standard ration pack. He reached out one of his primary appendages, as if to pat the creature's head in a mocking gesture. 3 things happened simultaneously. First, the honey badger moved with speed that should not have been possible for something with such short legs. It twisted, coiled, and launched itself upward with explosive force. Second, those jaws, which had seemed almost cute in their bluntness, opened to reveal teeth designed for one purpose: destruction. Third, Vrex screamed. His reinforced exoskeleton, the same armor plating that had earned Crithians their reputation as one of the galaxy's premier warrior species, crunched under the honey badger's bite like a dried protein wafer. Rascal latched onto Vrex's appendage and did not let go. He shook his head back and forth with mechanical violence, his loose skin allowing him to thrash despite Vrex's desperate attempts to shake him off. Chitin fragments flew through the air. "Get it off! Get it off!" Vrex wailed, his earlier bravado evaporating like atmosphere through a hull breach. "Rascal, release," Maya said calmly. The honey badger let go immediately, landing on all 4 paws with a soft thud. He looked up at Maya, made a chuffing sound that might have been affection, then turned his gaze back to the assembled students. We all took a collective step backward. Rascal's message was clear. "Try something, I dare you." Vrex clutched his damaged appendage, green blood leaking through the cracks in his armor. Station medical personnel rushed forward, but the damage was done. Not just to his arm, but to his pride, to all our understanding of the natural order. Medical assessment indicates the bite force exceeded 1,200 pounds per square inch, one of the medics reported, scanning Vrex with diagnostic equipment. "How is that possible from a creature that size?" "Evolution," Maya said simply. "When you're small and everything wants to eat you, you either get tough or you go extinct. Honey badgers chose tough." Professor Morix had arrived, along with several other faculty members. They stared at the small Earth creature, who stared back with absolute confidence. "This animal is cleared for station residence?" Morix asked. "Fully vetted, Professor," Maya replied. "Rascal has been trained for station life. He has his own atmospheric adjustment collar, waste management system, and dietary requirements are already programmed into the replicators. He's also been socialized to understand that unprovoked aggression is unacceptable." "That was provoked?" someone asked from the crowd. Maya looked at Vrex, who was being led away by medical staff. "He reached for my companion without permission. On Earth, that's considered a threat." Rascal responded appropriately. Appropriately. She used the word appropriately to describe a creature that had just shattered military-grade biological armor like it was decorative glasswork. The crowd dispersed slowly, students casting nervous glances at the honey badger, who had settled into a sitting position next to Maya's leg. His beady eyes tracked movement, cataloging threats, calculating responses. I approached cautiously, my documentation duties overriding my survival instincts. "Miss Winters, may I ask why you chose this particular companion?" Maya looked down at Rascal, and her expression softened. "Because when I was getting ready to come here, everyone told me I'd be the smallest, the weakest, the one who didn't belong. My grandmother told me a story about honey badgers. She said they don't win by being the biggest or the strongest. They win by refusing to lose, by being so tough, so relentless, that everything else backs down first." She knelt down and scratched behind Rascal's ears. The honey badger leaned into the touch, making a sound that was almost a purr. "Almost. I needed a reminder," Maya continued, "that size doesn't determine strength, that being underestimated is sometimes an advantage, and that sometimes the scariest thing in the room is the one nobody took seriously until it was too late." Rascal looked up at me with those dark, calculating eyes, and I understood something fundamental about humans in that moment. They had evolved alongside creatures like this. They had learned from them, adapted their strategies, internalized their philosophy. Never give up, never back down, bite harder than anything expects you to. The next day, I noticed something remarkable during morning meal assembly. The corner table where Maya always sat alone now had a companion. Rascal, sitting in a specially designed seat beside her, eating what appeared to be a mixture of protein cubes and something the replicators had created based on Earth nutritional databases. But that was not the remarkable part. The remarkable part was the empty space around her table, a radius of approximately 10 feet in all directions, completely vacant. Students gave her area a wide berth, casting nervous glances at the small creature who ate his meal with single-minded intensity. Vrex entered the cafeteria, his appendage wrapped in regenerative bandaging. He saw Maya, saw Rascal, and immediately changed direction, choosing a table on the opposite side of the vast room. Word had spread quickly. The human's companion was not to be trifled with. More importantly, the human herself had just become significantly more complicated to bully. In gravitational physics class, something shifted. Maya still struggled with some of the advanced mathematics, but when she asked Professor Kelmick for clarification, there was no snickering from the other students. Rascal lay at her feet, appearing to sleep, but I noticed his ears remained alert, tracking every sound. Nobody wanted to be the student who laughed at the human while that creature was present. During practical exercises in the training facility, Maya participated in the obstacle course designed to test species-specific abilities. She was not the fastest. She was not the most agile. But she completed every section with methodical determination, and Rascal ran beside her, matching her pace, his low-slung body moving with surprising efficiency. When she finished, breathing hard but standing straight, Rascal sat beside her and made that chuffing sound again. Pride, companionship, partnership. Adequate performance, Miss Winters, Professor Morix said. Your companion is well trained. Thank you, Professor. We trained together back on Earth. Rascal and I have been partners for 3 years. 3 years. This human child, this supposedly weak and fragile specimen, had spent 3 years bonding with a creature bred from pure defiance and violence. What did that say about humans? I documented everything. The way other students now nodded at Maya in the hallways rather than mocking her. The way she was invited to join a study group focusing on xenobiology, specifically because her unique perspective on Earth creatures proved valuable. The way Rascal became something of a station celebrity, with students from multiple species requesting permission to observe him during his feeding times or exercise periods. Always from a respectful distance, of course. 2 weeks after Rascal's arrival, an incident occurred in the recreational commons that crystallized everything I had been observing. Sela, the Vorton who had previously mocked Maya's academic performance, was demonstrating her phase displacement ability to a group of impressed first-year students. Showing off, really, shifting through solid walls and furniture with practiced ease. "Watch this," she said, her crystalline form shimmering. "I will phase through the human's companion, proof that my abilities surpass even Earth's so-called fiercest creatures." "I would not recommend that," Maya said from across the room, where she was working on assignment data with several other students. "Oh, and why not? Worried I will hurt your little pet?" Maya did not look up from her work. "No, worried you'll hurt yourself." Laughter from Sela's admirers. Rascal, lying near Maya's feet, opened one eye. Sela approached, her confidence absolute. She had phased through hull plating, through security barriers, through the most sophisticated force fields the Academy could generate. A small Earth animal would pose no challenge. She began her phase shift, her molecular structure becoming translucent, intangible. She stepped toward Rascal, preparing to pass through him as if he were empty air. Rascal stood up. I do not know how to explain what happened next using conventional physics. Sela's phase state should have made her immune to physical interaction. But as she attempted to move through Rascal's space, the honey badger made that sound again. That growl hiss of pure challenge. And somehow, impossibly, he bit her. Sela shrieked, her phase state collapsing instantly as pain receptors overloaded her nervous system. She materialized fully, solidifying with Rascal's jaws clamped firmly on her crystalline forearm. "Phase displacement does not work if you panic," Maya said, still not looking up. Rascal, release! The honey badger let go. Sella stumbled backward, staring at her arm where tooth marks had actually scored her supposedly intangible form. How? She whispered. Honey badgers hunt venomous snakes that can sense infrared and ultraviolet, Maya explained, finally glancing up. They've evolved to counter abilities that should make prey impossible to catch. Phase shifting? That's just another defensive adaptation to overcome. Also, you really should not have threatened him. Rascal takes threats seriously. Professor Morix entered the commons at that moment, drawn by the commotion. He assessed the situation instantly. Sella nursing a bitten arm, Rascal sitting calmly beside Maya, a crowd of shocked students forming a wide circle around them both. Miss Sella, please report to medical, he said. Then, turning to Maya, Miss Winters, we may need to discuss restraining protocols for your companion. With respect, Professor, Sella initiated contact after being warned. Rascal defended himself according to his nature. Would you restrain a Talvesian battle drake for responding to provocation? A long pause. Morix's compound eyes swiveled to examine the honey badger, who met his gaze without flinching. A creature weighing 25 pounds, staring down a six-legged professor who had served in 3 interstellar conflicts. Rascal did not blink first. Point taken, Morix said. Miss Sella, consider this a lesson in respecting unknown capabilities. Dismissed. That evening, I compiled my documentation for the weekly observation report. My findings were unusual, to say the least. Subject Maya Winters has successfully integrated into station society through unconventional means. Rather than attempting to match the physical or intellectual capabilities of other species, she has instead introduced a paradigm shift in threat assessment. The presence of her companion animal, despite its small size, has created a deterrent effect that social adaptation alone could not achieve. But that was not the whole truth. I added a personal note, something my people rarely did in official documentation. The human child taught us something about underestimation, about the danger of judging capability by appearance, about the fact that evolution produces solutions we cannot always predict or understand. Every species here believed themselves superior to humans in some measurable way, and perhaps by standard metrics, they are. But humans do not play by standard metrics. They befriend the unbefriendable. They endure the unendurable. And when pushed, they push back with a ferocity borrowed from creatures that refuse to go extinct, despite being small, despite being vulnerable, despite every logical reason to give up. I watched from the observatory that night as Maya and Rascal walked through the station gardens, a human child and an Earth predator, both far from home, both refusing to break under the weight of being different. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more classes, more opportunities for failure and mockery and isolation. But tonight, Maya Winters sat on a bench under artificial stars, and Rascal lay across her lap, and neither of them looked afraid of what came next. Because honey badgers do not give up, and apparently, neither do the humans who learn from them. The morning of the quantum mechanics practical exam arrived with all the subtlety of a solar flare. Station 7's artificial dawn cycle brightened the corridors, and I watched Maya prepare in her quarters through the security feed I had legitimate access to for my documentation purposes. She was talking to Rascal while organizing her study materials, a habit I had noticed before. Humans often verbalize their thoughts to companion animals, despite knowing the creatures could not understand complex language. Okay, buddy. Today's the big one. 60% of our final grade. If I fail this, they might send me back to Earth. And you know what that means? It means they win. It means everyone who said humans don't belong out here gets to be right. Rascal made a snuffling sound and headbutted her hand. She scratched behind his ears, and I noticed her breathing had slowed, become more controlled. The animal provided emotional regulation. Fascinating. The examination hall was configured differently than usual. Instead of individual workstations, students were grouped in multi-species teams of 4. Collaborative problem-solving under pressure, Professor Kelmick had explained. The galaxy does not face challenges in isolation. I documented the team assignments as they appeared on the central display screen. Maya's name flickered into view, and beside it, 3 other names that made my sensory organs retract in sympathetic discomfort. Team 17, Maya Winters, human. Vrex Talion, Crithian. Celamorphix, Vortan. Prex Gondolar, Hectarian. The 3 students who had mocked her most relentlessly, now forced to work alongside her for the most important assessment of the term. This was either spectacularly poor algorithmic randomization, or Professor Kelmick had a twisted sense of educational methodology. Maya entered the hall with Rascal at her side. The honey badger had become so commonplace that security no longer questioned his presence, though they had installed additional reinforced barriers around certain sensitive equipment after an incident involving a curious rascal and a graviton emitter. She found her assigned station. Vrex was already there, his damaged appendage fully healed but visibly reinforced with synthetic plating. When he saw Maya approaching, his posture shifted from confident to wary. "Winters," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "Vrex," she replied, matching his tone exactly. Sela arrived next, her crystalline form refracting the overhead lighting into rainbow patterns. She glanced at Rascal, who was settling into his observation position beside Maya's chair, and maintained a careful distance. "Let us establish ground rules," Sela said, her voice carrying that musical quality Vortans possessed. "This examination requires cooperation, but I suggest we minimize physical proximity where possible." Translation: "Please keep your terrifying earth monster away from me." Prex oozed into position, his gelatinous body forming itself into a roughly humanoid shape. Hectarians were formless by nature, able to manipulate their physical structure at will. In theory, this made them impossible to injure through conventional means. In practice, Prex had witnessed what happened to Sela and had no desire to test whether honey badger jaws could damage cellular matter held together by electromagnetic cohesion. "The human brings advantages," Prex burbled, his voice generated by vibrating specialized organs within his mass. "Her perspective is unique. We should utilize this." I documented this remarkable statement. 2 weeks ago, Prex had publicly declared humans to be evolutionary mistakes. Now he was advocating for collaboration. Fear, apparently, bred pragmatism. Professor Kelmick activated the examination parameters. Teams will receive a series of escalating quantum mechanical problems. You must not only solve them, but demonstrate your solutions using the equipment provided. You have 4 standard hours. Begin. The first problem appeared on their shared display screen. Calculate the probability distribution of a particle existing simultaneously in 3 different quantum states while accounting for gravitational interference from a nearby stellar mass. Child's play for most species here. Crithians had natural mathematical processors in their neural structures. Vortans could literally phase between quantum states and understood the mathematics intuitively. Hectarians experienced reality as probabilistic rather than deterministic, and found quantum mechanics more natural than classical physics. Humans had to do everything the hard way, with calculations and theoretical frameworks and sheer stubborn determination. Maya pulled up her datapad and began working through the equations methodically. Vrex watched her for a moment, his mandibles clicking with what might have been impatience. "Your approach is inefficient," he said. "You are calculating variables that can be eliminated through dimensional reduction." "Show me," Maya replied without defensiveness. Vrex blinked his compound eyes in surprise. He had expected argument, perhaps defensiveness. Instead, the human wanted to learn. He manipulated the holographic interface, demonstrating his technique. "I see," Maya said after a moment. "That's elegant. But it only works if we assume the stellar mass is stationary. The problem states nearby, not fixed position. We need to account for relative motion, which reintroduces those variables." Silence. Vrex recalculated. His mandibles stopped clicking. "You are correct," he admitted, "and I nearly dropped my documentation tablet." A Crithian acknowledging a human's mathematical insight. We must use your longer approach. Our approach, Maya corrected gently. Your dimensional reduction still saves us time on the stable components. We combine methods. They work together. Vrex's processing speed paired with Maya's attention to detail. The solution emerged faster than either could have produced alone. Sela contributed the phase state calculations, her unique perspective allowing her to visualize quantum superpositions in ways others could not. Prex handled the probabilistic modeling, his very existence straddling multiple potential states simultaneously. And Maya? Maya translated between them, finding common ground in their different approaches, asking questions that made each team member reconsider their assumptions. Rascal watched the entire process with those calculating eyes, occasionally making soft sounds that seemed to calm Maya during particularly stressful calculations. They completed the first problem in 43 minutes, well ahead of most teams. The second problem was more complex. Design a quantum entanglement communication system that remains stable across 11 different dimensional membranes while accounting for temporal distortion. This required not just calculation but practical construction using the equipment provided: particle accelerators, quantum field generators, dimensional anchors, all potentially dangerous in inexperienced hands. I will handle the field generators, Sela offered. My phase abilities give me precise control over dimensional interfaces. I can manage the particle acceleration, Vrex added. My people have been working with high-energy physics for 6 generations. Temporal calculations are my specialty, Prex burbled, though I will need assistance with the physical manipulation, as my form lacks structural rigidity. They all looked at Maya, the human, the one with no special abilities, no natural advantages, no evolutionary gifts that made her suited for advanced quantum physics. I'll coordinate, Maya said simply, and handle the safety protocols. Humans are really good at not dying from our own experiments. We've had a lot of practice. It was said without irony, but I caught the dark humor underneath. Humans had indeed survived their own technological advancement through sheer paranoid caution, apparently. The team began construction. Sela phased parts of the apparatus into precise dimensional alignment. Vrex calibrated the particle streams with mathematical precision. Prex flowed through the temporal calculation matrices, his formless body serving as both computer and component. And Maya? Maya watched everything, her datapad tracking energy readings, stability metrics, containment field integrity. When Vrex's calculations began pushing the accelerator beyond safe parameters, she caught it. Hold on. Those energy levels will breach the containment threshold in approximately 90 seconds. We need to throttle back by 15%. That will reduce our efficiency, Vrex protested. That will keep us alive, Maya countered. Efficiency means nothing if we trigger a cascade failure. Trust me, humans have destroyed approximately 437 laboratories learning this lesson. Let's not add to that number. Vrex hesitated, then adjusted the parameters. Your species has destroyed over 400 labs. Those are just the ones we kept records of. There were probably more. I watched Rascal during this exchange. The honey badger had stood up, moved closer to the equipment, and was sniffing the air. His body language suggested alertness, potential threat assessment. Rascal's bothered by something, Maya said suddenly. Everyone step back. The animal has no understanding of quantum mechanics, Sela objected. The animal has survived 3 years on a planet where everything wants to kill everything else. When he says something's wrong, something's wrong. Step back. They hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before Rascal's growl decided the matter. The team moved back from their apparatus just as a minor feedback loop in the dimensional anchor caused a small but significant energy discharge. Nothing dangerous, but it would have been extremely unpleasant for anyone standing within 2 meters. The honey badger had somehow sensed the instability before their instruments registered it. How? Prex asked, his gelatinous form rippling with confusion. Honey badgers hunt in environments with underground bee colonies, hidden snake dens, and unstable terrain. They've evolved incredibly sensitive threat detection, electromagnetic fluctuations, air pressure changes, temperature variations. Rascal picks up on patterns we miss. Maya approached the equipment cautiously, Rascal beside her, and made 3 small adjustments to the dimensional anchor's configuration. The readings stabilized. There, the anchor was oscillating at a frequency that created harmonic interference. My instruments couldn't detect it directly, but Rascal could feel it. Vrex stared at the honey badger with something approaching respect. An animal is a scientific instrument, inefficient but apparently effective. Everything on Earth is a scientific instrument if you know how to read it, Maya replied. We didn't have natural abilities like phase shifting or mathematical processing organs. We had to learn by watching, by testing, by failing a lot and figuring out why. Our animals taught us how to survive, how to hunt, how to detect danger, how to never give up even when we should. They completed the second problem in 97 minutes. Their solution was not the fastest, but Professor Kelmick, who was monitoring all teams, noted in his evaluation log that it was the most stable, with the fewest safety violations. The third and final problem appeared, and I felt my thermal regulation spike reading it. Create a sustained quantum bridge between 2 points that exist in mutually exclusive probability states. Demonstrate matter transference through the bridge without collapsing the wave function. You have 90 minutes. This was theoretical physics that most species considered impossible. Creating a bridge between 2 things that could not simultaneously exist violated fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. It was a problem designed to test creative thinking under impossible constraints. Most teams stared at their screens in defeated silence. Maya's team huddled together, and I watched something remarkable happen. The mockery was gone. The dismissiveness had evaporated. In its place was something like genuine collaboration. The problem assumes we cannot change the probability states, Maya said, thinking aloud. But what if we don't try to bridge them directly? What if we create a third state that can interface with both? A quantum intermediary, Prex burbled, his form brightening with excitement. Something that exists in superposition relative to both target states. But maintaining superposition while allowing matter transference would require energy levels that exceed station safety limits. Vrex calculated rapidly. Unless we pulse it, Sela finished. Rapid oscillation between states instead of sustained superposition, like my phase shifting but at quantum scales. They began working with intensity I had rarely seen, each contributing their unique perspective. Maya coordinated, keeping track of the overall design while ensuring no single component pushed beyond safe parameters. Rascal had moved to a position where he could watch all the equipment simultaneously, his head swiveling to track each team member's work. The honey badger, I realized, had become an unofficial 5th team member. His presence kept them honest, kept them cautious, kept them aware that one mistake could have consequences. 40 minutes into construction, Prex made an error. His formless body was manipulating a temporal stabilizer when his concentration slipped. The device began cycling toward critical feedback. Rascal reacted before anyone else, lunging forward and physically knocking the stabilizer away from the primary apparatus with his blunt snout. The device clattered across the floor, its feedback loop collapsing harmlessly into empty air rather than cascading through their entire system. Prex's gelatinous form rippled with what I recognized as Hectarian shock response. The creature saved our experiment, possibly our lives. Rascal doesn't like things that feel dangerous, Maya said, checking her teammate for injury. You okay, Prex? I am. Yes, functional. The human's companion is remarkably perceptive. He's had practice. Back home, I was working on a chemistry project in my family's lab. Accidentally mixed reagents in the wrong order and created an exothermic reaction that was about to go critical. Rascal knocked the container into the sink 3 seconds before it would have exploded. Burned his paw doing it, but he didn't hesitate. She reached down and scratched behind Rascal's ears. The honey badger leaned into her touch, making that chuffing sound of contentment. Your bond with this creature is deeper than companionship, Sela observed. It is partnership. Mutual survival. That's what honey badgers teach you, Maya said. Everything's trying to kill you, so you'd better have someone watching your back. Someone who won't give up on you, no matter how bad things get. They completed their apparatus with 11 minutes remaining. The quantum bridge flickered into unstable existence, a shimmering connection between two probability states that should not have been able to interface. They sent a test particle through, a simple electron, and watched as it traversed the impossible gap without collapsing either wave function. Professor Kelmick appeared at their station, his compound eyes examining their work with undisguised interest. "Explain your methodology." Vrex, Sella, and Prex all looked at Maya. She took a breath and began. "We recognized that the problem wasn't actually about creating a bridge. It was about redefining what connection means at quantum scales. Instead of a sustained structure, we created an oscillating probability field that rapidly cycles through compatible states. For 0.003 seconds, it's compatible with state A. For the next 0.003 seconds, it's compatible with state B. The oscillation is fast enough that matter can traverse without perceiving the discontinuity." "And the energy requirements?" "We borrowed a technique from Earth biology, specifically from honey badgers." She gestured to Rascal, who was watching the professor with alert interest. "When honey badgers fight, they don't maintain constant pressure. They strike, retreat, strike again. Pulse attacks that conserve energy while maintaining threat. We applied the same principle. Instead of constant power, we use rapid bursts, letting the system rest between cycles. Total energy expenditure is 40% below continuous operation." Professor Kelmick was silent for a long moment. His manipulator appendages clicked together, a Talvesian gesture indicating deep thought. "You have created a functional quantum bridge using principles derived from animal combat behavior. This is either brilliance or madness." "On Earth, those are often the same thing, Professor," Maya replied. The results were posted 3 hours later. Team 17 had not scored the highest marks. That honor went to a group of advanced Talvesian students who had years of experience beyond their classmates. But Team 17 had received special commendation for innovative problem-solving and exceptional safety protocols. More importantly, they had passed comfortably, with scores that reflected genuine collaborative effort. I found Maya in the observation lounge that evening. She sat in one of the human-compatible chairs, staring out at the stars with Rascal curled in her lap. The honey badger appeared to be sleeping, but I had learned his ears remained alert, even in rest. "May I join you, Miss Winters?" She looked up, seeming unsurprised. "Sure, Tulvin. I know you've been documenting everything. It's okay. I understand why." I settled into a neutral position, my sensory organs focused on the star field beyond the transparent aluminum viewport. My reports on human integration have become quite popular among the Galactic Academy administrators. You have changed perceptions significantly. Have I? Or has Rascal? An astute distinction. Tell me, why did you choose to bring specifically a honey badger? Earth has many companion animals. Surely something less aggressive would have made social integration easier. Maya was quiet for a moment, stroking Rascal's fur with gentle, repetitive motions. When I got accepted to the academy, I was excited. Terrified, but excited. Then I started reading about the other species I'd be studying with. Everyone had advantages, natural abilities I could never match. I realized pretty quickly I'd be the weakest one here by almost every measure. She paused, and Rascal shifted slightly in her lap, not quite waking. "My grandmother raised honey badgers for wildlife rehabilitation. She told me stories about them, how they'd take on predators 50 times their size, how they'd get stung by bees hundreds of times just to get to honey, how they'd never back down, never give up, even when any rational creature would have run away. And she said something I never forgot." "What did she say?" "She said the honey badger doesn't win by being the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. It wins by making everything else decide the fight isn't worth it. By being so tough, so relentless, so absolutely unwilling to quit that eventually. Even lions back down." Maya looked at me directly, her human eyes reflecting the distant starlight. I brought Rascal because I needed everyone here to understand something, including myself. Being small doesn't mean being weak. Being different doesn't mean being less. And sometimes, the scariest thing in the room is the one nobody took seriously until it was too late. And your classmates have learned this lesson. Some of them, Vrex, Sella, Prex. They worked with me today like actual teammates, not because they suddenly respect humans, but because they respect what happens when you underestimate someone. That's enough. For now. Rascal woke then, lifting his head to look at me with those dark, calculating eyes. I felt the familiar response, the instinctive recognition that this small creature was dangerous in ways my species had not evolved to understand. "May I ask him a question?" I said, addressing Maya but looking at Rascal. "He won't answer, but sure. What do you see when you look at us? All these alien species, these strange creatures from worlds you never evolved to understand?" Rascal tilted his head slightly, as if actually considering the question. Then he made a soft huffing sound, curled back into Maya's lap, and closed his eyes. "I think," Maya said softly, "he sees what he's always seen. Potential threats, potential allies, and a world that's trying to kill him. The only difference is now the threats wear exoskeletons and can phase through walls. But the response is the same as it's always been. Don't quit. Don't back down. Bite back harder than anything expects. Your species learned well from these creatures. Our species survived because of these creatures. We weren't the apex predators. We were the middle management prey that figured out how to use tools and make friends with wolves. Every advantage we have, we borrowed from something else. Fire from lightning, flight from birds. And stubbornness." She smiled down at Rascal. "That we learned from honey badgers." The following weeks brought noticeable changes to station dynamics. Maya was no longer eating alone in the cafeteria. Her table had expanded to include Vrex, Sella, and Prex, along with several other students from various species who had begun to see value in the human perspective. Rascal had become something of a station mascot, though one treated with healthy respect. Students would bring him treats from their home worlds, carefully offered from safe distances, testing whether Earth's fiercest small predator might tolerate alien cuisine. He was surprisingly receptive, though he maintained his standards. Hectarian protein gel. Acceptable. Vortan crystallized sugars. Delicious, apparently. Crithian fermented fungi. Rascal had expressed his opinion on that by burying it in a decorative planter and walking away with obvious disdain. But the most significant change was in classroom dynamics. Maya still struggled with some advanced concepts. She still needed extra time on certain calculations. But now, when she asked questions, other students listened. Because they had learned that the humans' questions often revealed assumptions everyone else had missed. Professor Kelmick had begun using Team 17's quantum bridge solution as a teaching example. Not because it was the most technically sophisticated, but because it demonstrated something the Academy rarely taught: innovation through adversity. The willingness to learn from everything, even small Earth predators. I compiled my final documentation report for the term with unusual satisfaction. My people valued objectivity, neutrality, observation without judgment. But even we recognized exceptional data when we encountered it. Subject Maya Winters has successfully integrated into Galactic Academy Station 7 society. Initial predictions of failure based on human physical and cognitive limitations proved fundamentally flawed. The subject demonstrated that intelligence is not merely about processing speed or natural capability, but about adaptability, collaboration, and the willingness to learn from unconventional sources. The presence of the honey badger companion proved crucial. Not as expected, not by making the human more physically formidable, but by forcing other species to reconsider their assumptions about size, strength, and capability. In defending her companion's right to respect, Miss Winters earned respect for herself and, by extension, for humanity. Conclusion: humans may not be the strongest, fastest, or most naturally gifted species in the known galaxy, But they possess something potentially more valuable: the ability to learn from anything, to adapt to everything, and to never, ever give up. They befriended wolves and created civilization. They studied birds and conquered flight. They watched honey badgers and learned that size matters far less than determination. The galaxy would be wise not to underestimate them. I submitted the report and went to find Maya for a final interview before term break. She was in the training facility, running obstacle courses with Rascal. The honey badger moved like liquid violence, his low-slung body finding paths through barriers designed for species twice his size. Maya finished her run, breathing hard but smiling. Rascal trotted back to her, making happy chuffing sounds, and she produced a treat from her pocket. He accepted it with dignity, as if such tribute was merely his due. Final documentation questions, Miss Winters? Sure. Make it quick, though. Rascal and I have a study session with Rex in 20 minutes. He's teaching me advanced Crithian mathematical frameworks, and I'm teaching him Earth biological adaptation strategies. A fair exchange. Tell me, what have you learned most from your time here? Maya considered this, absently scratching behind Rascal's ears while the honey badger leaned into her touch. I learned that being different isn't a weakness, it's just different. Every species here has advantages I'll never have, but I have advantages they don't understand yet. I learned that respect isn't given for what you are, it's earned by what you do. And I learned that sometimes the best way to prove yourself is to bring along a friend who refuses to let anyone forget that small doesn't mean harmless. And what has Rascal learned? That aliens taste interesting, that station life has acceptable climate control, and that no matter how far from Earth we go, there are still things worth protecting, still fights worth fighting, and still absolutely zero good reasons to ever give up. She stood, collected her training equipment, and headed toward the exit with Rascal at her heels. Then she paused and looked back at me. Tulvin, thanks for being fair in your documentation. A lot of observers would have written me off as a failure waiting to happen. I merely recorded what I observed, Miss Winters. Yeah, but you observed carefully. That matters more than you think. They left together, the human child and the honey badger, both small by galactic standards, both underestimated by almost everyone who met them, both absolutely, completely, fundamentally unwilling to back down from any challenge the universe cared to present. I watched them go and added one final note to my documentation, a personal observation that would probably be edited out by my supervisors, but needed to be recorded nonetheless. Humanity has entered galactic society. They bring no natural armor, no phase-shifting abilities, no mathematical processing organs. They bring instead something we have forgotten in our advancement, the lesson that evolution teaches to every species that refuses to go extinct. Never give up, never back down, and when everything else in the universe decides you're too small to matter, make sure you bite hard enough that they never forget you exist. The honey badger knows this lesson, and now, thanks to one small human child and her impossibly fierce companion, the galaxy is beginning to learn it too. The stars beyond the viewport burned with ancient light, and somewhere among them, humanity was preparing to show the cosmos what happens when you underestimate the species that learned survival from Earth's most relentless predator. I documented this with scientific precision, and with something my people rarely acknowledge: hope.